Now, you guys know that I'm an honorary Washington Huskies fan for this season, and I've been rolling with this team all season long. I picked them to beat Texas, and I'm picking them again to beat Michigan, but I got a big concern about the Huskies going into this game, and I got a lot of money on Washington to win this thing now, all right? And what scares me the most is this defense against Michigan's rushing attack. Washington has a pretty solid defensive line. All right, but they haven't faced an offensive line like Michigan's up until this game, and they haven't seen a team that has this effective as a rushing attack since when they played Oregon State in the latter half of the season. And when they played Oregon State in that game, which is the closest opponent that resembles Michigan the best, Damian Martinez, he went off against them. He had 123 rushing yards. He was averaging 4.7 yards per carry, and he had 2 touchdowns in that game. Now, Washington still won, but when you look back at their game last week when they beat Texas, Texas had a lot of success on the ground. They had one of their running backs in C.J. Baxter, who was damn near at one point averaging almost 10 yards per carry at one point. And Texas, if they would have ran the football a lot more in that game, they probably would have given themselves a better shot at being able to win it. But Steve Sarkisian, he's just such a pass-heavy guy that he got away from the run game, even though that was the most effective way they were moving the football downfield. One thing about Michigan is that we know if there's ever going to be a team that stays committed and dedicated to the run game, it's going to be these guys. You go back and you look at that Penn State game, these fools ran the ball 31 straight times to end that game. And the worst case scenario that could happen to Washington in this game is that Michigan gets that ground game going. They don't get away from it like what Texas did when it's working, and they control time of possession, they tire out that defense, and they keep Washington's high-powered offense off the field. Look, we know that Michigan is the best defense that Washington has seen all season long, but Washington is going to be able to score points on that Wolverines defense. It's just that I'm not expecting them to have the amount of success with the deep passing game like they did against Texas, because Michigan has a way better secondary than Texas, and they have one of the best secondaries in all of college football. So for Washington, I'm not saying that they're not going to have success offensively. I'm saying that I'm not expecting them to be as effective throwing the football in this game as they were last week against Texas, with them going against a marginally better defense. But they're still going to be able to score points on Michigan. I just don't think that they're going to go over 30. I think with them, if they win this game, which I believe they will, it's going to be somewhere between 28, maybe they get to 30, and I don't see them scoring any more than that, because Michigan, they don't allow a lot of big plays in the passing game. They have talent on all levels of their defense. Their defensive line is stout. Their linebackers are stout, and their secondary is stout as well. For Washington, you can't allow yourself to get into a game when Michigan can just run the football at will against you, like how Texas was able to at some point last week when you beat them. You see, Texas isn't a run-heavy team. That's not something that they predicate themselves on. They want to beat you throwing the football. Michigan, they want to get down and dirty with you in the trenches, and they want to say, hey, Washington, you're from the West Coast. We think that you West Coast teams are soft. Show us that you guys have what it takes to match our physicality. And I noticed that a lot of Washington fans got mad at me when I previewed the Texas game, and they were saying, man, like, we get tired of hearing that physical team nonsense. Like, everybody we play is a more physical team than us, supposedly. And that is true to an extent. I do feel like the whole physicality thing with Washington gets a little bit overblown too much, because they're pretty physical in their own right. But when you're going up against Michigan, this team is a sledgehammer. Not only are you about to go into a game against a team like Michigan that's more than capable of being able to slow down your passing attack, but you're going up against a team that specializes in being able to play bully ball. And Washington, regardless of what you Husky fans may say, you're not a team that's built to stop teams that like to play bully ball consistently. You may be able to get a couple of stops in this game when it comes to slowing down Michigan's rushing attack, but your run defense isn't really the strong suit of your defense. And when you look at where Washington ranks statistically when it comes to their run defense, they're around 40th in the nation in rushing yards per game allowed. But anytime they've gone up against a team that has been effective running the football, that is predicated on having success rushing the ball, like Oregon State, they haven't really done a good job of being able to neutralize their rushing attack. And the reason why I use Oregon State as a reference is because Oregon State, as I said a couple of minutes ago, is the team that closely represents or resembles what you're going to be facing in a national title game. There's no team in the Pac-12 that you played this year, maybe outside of Utah, that has the kind of philosophy that Michigan has. Oregon State, they had a lot of success running the football with Damian Martinez. And with you being able to slow down the run game of Oregon, that was impressive. But Oregon isn't a team that offensively, their success is predicated on how well they run the ball. Michigan, if you can slow down their run game and you make them one-dimensional offensively, that would be a huge win for you, and it would drastically put the odds in your favor of you being able to hoist up that college football national title. You see, Michigan's game revolves around them being balanced on offense, not knowing what's coming. They want to mix in the run with the pass. They want to get play action going. They also want to use some design quarterback runs with J.J. McCarthy. If you're Washington, my biggest concern for the Huskies in this game is their run defense. You got a solid defensive line, but you don't have a great defensive line. Your best defensive lineman is Braylon Trice. He's going to be huge when it comes to you being able to slow down this run game of Michigan. And I have a lot of concerns about how Washington's defense is going to match up against the physicality of this Michigan team. Like when you're going up against Michigan, not only are you suiting up for a football game, but you're about to go to fucking war. There's no team in college football that is as physical as what these boys are, bro. They're running down your throat if you allow them to. And Washington has to come out early and they got to make a statement. They got to say, no. You're not about to come in here and just run the football and dominate us in the trenches with the run game. You better beat us another way, and it's not going to be with the rushing attack. You got Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, the best 1-2 punch at running back in college football. J.J. McCarthy, they utilize him a lot in the ground game. It's really pivotal for Washington to make sure that they put all resources available in the keeping Michigan's run game at bay. You may not be able to slow it down, but you can't allow this run game to dictate the outcome of this game because it's not going to go in your favor. You still need possessions offensively. And you're going to score, but you may not be able to score at the rate that you were when you played Texas. Therefore, if Michigan gets the rushing attack going, and let's say they get the ball with 10 minutes left in the fourth quarter, a team like this is possibly able to take 8 minutes off the clock. And then with the fourth quarter, you may only get one more possession with only 2 minutes left. Possessions are at a premium when you go up against a team like Michigan and they're able to just ground and pound you. Washington has a pretty solid defensive line, but it's not a great defensive line. And that's what concerns me. In the rushing attack, you know, they don't really put a lot of emphasis on running the football. They run the football when they need to, but it's not really a necessity. So my biggest concern for Washington in this game isn't really their secondary. I don't believe Michigan is going to just carve up Washington's secondary because Washington's secondary is better than what people give it credit for. They did a pretty good job against Texas. Like, yeah, Texas came on a little bit late in the fourth quarter and Quinn Ewers and company got going. But for the majority of this game, this secondary did a really good job at slowing down Texas passing attack. Michigan isn't a team that's built to beat you the same way that you're built to beat them. You see, what Washington likes to do is they want to basically go vintage Mike Leach. They want to throw the football all over the field against you, and they got the players to do that. But Michigan, they don't have that same level of talent offensively that you do at wide receiver. You see, with Michigan, they can beat you throwing the football, but only once they get that run game going. You see, the run game is an extension of this Michigan offense. When they don't have it, this is a completely different team. You need to make this Michigan team one-dimensional. You can't allow them to get the ground game going at all, and you really can't afford to find yourself in a game where they go over 150. If they get over 150 rushing yards, it's wraps. You're not going to lose this game, and you're not only going to lose a national title, but you're going to lose me a lot of money too, because I got a lot of money on Washington right now. Not only did I pick them to win this game outright, but before the playoffs even started, I put like a couple of $100 down on them winning the national championship, which they had like the least odds to do so. So I thought it was a pretty great bet. Kalen DeBoer is one of the best kept secrets in college football. If they win a national title, he won't be anymore because now everybody's going to know just how great of a coach he is. He has a really great coaching staff. They need to make sure that they can keep this ground game of Michigan at bay, because if they let Michigan take them to Pound Town, I don't think it's going to be pretty for Washington. Your offense is going to score points, but you're not going to be able to score every possession against this Michigan defense. They are going to get a few stops here and there. And if they can get that run game going, they keep your defense on the field. And let's say they go on like a 7-8 play drive, and maybe offensively you only get like 3-4 possessions the whole entire first half. You're going to have to maximize those. And if you can take away that ground game of Michigan and make them one-dimensional when they have to beat you with just J.J. McCarthy's arm, you're going to win this game, and you're going to win it pretty convincingly, because that's not Michigan's strength. They're not a team that's built to beat you throwing the football purely. They got to have that ground game going. They have to use that so they can be balanced. That's a big part of their offense. So that's what really concerns me the most about Washington, is their ability to stop the run against Michigan, because these boys are bullies from the middle portion of the country. Like, the West Coast teams have a stigma that they're more finesse. They're not that great up front. Washington, I don't really think they fit in that stigma, because they do have the ability to have success at times slowing down the run game. It may not just be at the efficiency that you would like. And against Michigan, coming from the middle portion of the country, with Jim Harbaugh being the head coach, all he does is preach trench play and physicality. And they're not going to get away from the run game if it's successful, unlike Texas. If Texas would have ran the ball like 20, 30, 40 times, that would have been a completely different game. So, as an honorary Washington fan for this season, for you to finish this historical season and to bring home the championship, you need to make sure that you don't allow Michigan to bully you with the run game.